Good morning, guys. So, this chapter in this video, we'll be looking at a little bit more about project analysis and a little bit of the NPV analysis and how it's actually done in firms. Okay, so, the first thing we'll actually have to do is what is the capital budget in some sense and how the capital budget actually occurs in a firm. So, any list of planned investments, as you know, is the capital budget. Anytime you have to make some sort of investment, um, cash leaves your cash account from the firm and it goes towards different sorts of expenses. And these sort of investment processes can actually be in two different ways. And the first one is the bottom up. So all the plant people, like all the replacement, all the requests for budgets and organizations kind of go up the ladder. So the lowest person requests a budget to the salesperson, and like the salesperson requests a budget to like the sales manager and the associate manager, regional manager, and so on, so on, so on. So the budgets gets approved, and the list of ideas and projects in terms of maintenance and efficient methods and needing new delivery methods, whatever it is, these requests go from bottom up. The other sort of approach is the top-down strategic approach. The strategic approach is usually done by the firm CEO and the CFO together, and they try and think about expansion or reducing divisions and opening up a new manufacturing plant or capacity expansion and so on. So these sort of bigger, higher capital decisions are top-down strategic plannings. And you do any firm typically has to have both of these in happening in the right way in order for their capital budgets to be used efficiently. Okay, but in not only this, whenever you have this sort of like when you come to this project authorizations, as soon as these sort of projects are identified, every firm typically has their projects categorized into one of these four categories. So the first one is almost always outlays required by law or by company policy. So these are mandatory in many sense. The only thing which firms actually try and do is to try and get the lowest, how to implement these outlays. Let's say pollution control, right? Like you should not, you need to clean up carbon in some ways. Like you cannot emit smoke directly into the atmosphere. You need to get some sort of carbon scrubbers or something. So these sort of investments, the firm actually tries to look at them, how to implement those policies and install those carbon scrubbers in the most efficient way or in the lowest possible cost. So that's the main objective for the first. These sort of projects are almost always approved. The second kind of projects are maintenance and cost reductions, and these are either maintaining the existing machines or replacing the old machine with a new, more efficient machine. You might have to try and think about your effective annual costs and talk to your engineering teams depending on these. So these are also the next highest priority because these go with existing business. So the first 2 points are related to the existing business, and the next 2 points are related with improving like the business in some sense, additions to the existing business. So the third part is the capacity expansion. So firms typically try to add more capacity to the existing business before they invest in new products, especially if there's a demand for capacity expansion. And so the last part is investment in new products. And so this is the most strategic decisions. And these sort of decisions tend to come more from top down rather than bottom up. And so after these projects, these are now that you know different kinds of projects, it's also important to like make sure a firm tries to like look at all projects in a very systematic way and try and think about them and try and make sure all the forecasts are very consistent, right? Like let's say if you're a mattress and you're like a big box store in terms of furniture, appliances, and many others, you sell many other things. So your furniture department might have some sort of forecast, and the appliance department might have a different kind of forecast. So it is up to you to actually try and see whether those make sense. Why is there a difference between the sales department's figures projections and the marketing department's projections? Right? So it's up to the manager to actually make sure that these forecasts are consistent. Also, you need to eliminate conflicts of interest. A lot of projects would a lot of people would rather go the safe way and try and propose like projects with like faster payback. Like plant managers, if you want to prove your worth in a very short period of time, sometimes you could do projects with very fast payback, but it might cost the company a lot more in the long run in terms of maintenance and so on. So these sort of projects should cutting corners and cutting costs, which could lead to a huge risk. That could be a big conflict of interest. A lot of these conflicts of interest were actually present during the financial crisis of 2007 to 2009. So leading up to the financial crisis, a lot of these banks, they took huge amounts of risk, while presenting them as less risky in some sense. So the next part also is like you need to reduce forecast bias. Like, when was the last time you heard that, oh, uh, this bridge was constructed ahead of schedule, right? Like, oh, the subway system was constructed 1 year ahead of schedule and with lower cost. Bombardier Systems did a fast and fantastic job in terms of delivering all their railway coaches on time. Like, you never hear that, right? So humans are almost always optimistic, and the projections are almost tend to be almost on the rosier side rather than taking a much more realistic approach of how much it'll look like. So it is up to the manager to try and think about what the actual outcome is rather than just falling for all the rosy forecasts, right? So, and you need to actually, then you have to try and think about sorting the wheat from the chaff. So the idea is, well, you need to ensure that your projects are positive NPV projects. And also, when you're trying to think about positive NPV projects, if those projects are so positive, why hasn't someone else done this project, right? It's a market economy, and if there's a bunch of excess positive NPV projects, the different participants will always come and bid for those projects and try and actually take that positive NPV. Okay, so a lot of these positive NPVs are actually possible only if you, as a firm, has some sort of like what you call competitive advantage, or in Warren Buffett's terms, this could be called as your moat, MOAT, right? So if you have a wide moat, that means you are the company which can, very few companies can actually take advantage of these positive NPV projects, and not every firm could take advantage of these things. So these advantages can occur in different ways. You might be the first to market. Like if you're a young, new growth company with some new technology, you are the one who's actually pushing these uh, products to the first place, and your competitive advantage might last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Depends on the kind of product and how easily your competitors can copy a product as well, right? And depends on your patents and intellectual properties and so on. Or you might also have different sorts of like a very efficient distribution network. You have very low transaction costs, and you've developed relationships over a long period of time. So these could be different sorts of competitive advantages to the firm, and that's why it's possible for your firm to have realized those positive NPV projects, but might not be the same for the competitor to ensure the same positive NPV projects. They might find it way too risky. Okay. Um, and in order to actually try and think about these projects, some techniques which you could try and use are the ideas of having some sort of sensitivity analysis and some scenarios and like simulations. Run various scenarios and try and think about under which scenarios do you actually get a positive NPV, and you could get a negative NPV. And these techniques can be used to try and assess the risk of the project from another perspective. That's it for this video. I'll talk a little bit more about the sensitivity and scenario analysis in the next video.